This is a story about a small American town that kept a secret for far too long. A secret hidden inside a leather-bound ledger, a book that didn't just keep track of numbers, but kept track of people, their debts, their promises, their guilt, and eventually their fate. Tonight's deep dive is about the case that locals call the Ridgewater Ledger. A case so bizarre that the police department still refuses to comment on half of it, a case where the crime scene, the investigation, and the killer all pointed back to one impossible object. A ledger that seemed to write itself, a ledger that chose its keeper, a ledger that didn't stay silent even after the victim died. On October 12, 2021, at exactly 9:43 p.m., a call came into the Ridgewater, Missouri Police Dispatch. The dispatcher answered, expecting a routine welfare check, or maybe a noise complaint. But instead, he heard a man's voice, calm, steady, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. The caller said, "You'll find the body at the old post office. The killer is in the ledger." Before the dispatcher could respond, the caller hung up. The old post office had been abandoned for 15 years. No electricity, no working doors, no activity. Officers rushed to the location, their headlights cutting through the thick fog that blanketed the outskirts of town. They entered the building through a broken side door. Flashlights swept across decaying mail crates, collapsed shelving, and peeling wallpaper. And there, in the center of the room, they found her, 29-year-old accountant Clara Whitman, lying on the dusty floor as if she'd been gently placed there. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were folded neatly on her stomach. Her face peaceful. There was no blood, and no wounds, and no signs of struggle, and no weapon, and no fingerprint trails. It was as if she had simply lain down and never gotten back up. But right beside her body was a leather-bound ledger, old, worn, filled from front to back. Officers flipped to the last page, and written there, in bold, deliberate handwriting, were the words, "The debt is paid." The ink was fresh, but Clara had been dead for almost 48 hours. To understand why this ledger mattered, you need to understand Clara Whitman. Clara wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't the type to get involved in drama. She lived alone in a small apartment above a flower shop. She worked as a junior accountant at a local firm. Her co-workers described her as quiet, reliable, a little too organized. But Clara had one peculiar trait. She wrote everything down. Her co-workers joked, "Clara doesn't have a memory. She has notebooks." Clara kept lists for groceries, chores, birthdays, passwords, weather patterns, dreams, everything. But there was one notebook she never showed anyone. The ledger found next to her body. When detectives opened it, they didn't find business numbers. Instead, they found names. 43 names, all residents of Ridgewater. Next to each name was a dollar amount. Not large amounts, $20, $60, $300, small sums, the kind of debts people forget about, the kind of debts people casually owe for years. And these were not official loans. These were personal favors Clara had done. Paying for someone's groceries, covering someone's electric bill, giving someone gas money, helping an elderly neighbor fix their taxes. Clara didn't chase people for repayment. She didn't ask for money back, but she wrote down every debt. What no one understood yet was why and how this ledger was connected to her death. The police investigation into Clara's death was odd from the start. The call that reported the body came from Clara's phone number. But when police searched her apartment, they found something impossible. Her phone was powered off, placed neatly on her bedside table, covered in a thin layer of dust, and the battery had been removed. Phone experts later confirmed there's no way a phone in that condition could have made a call. But the dispatch logs didn't lie. Her phone number called 911, and when investigators reviewed the recording, they heard something chilling in the background, the faint scratching sound of a pen writing on paper, just like the ledger next to Clara's body. No cause of death and no official murder weapon, and no identified 911 caller. And no explanation for handwriting that appears without pressure. And no one knows who or what continues creating new ledgers every year. Some say Clara was chosen to keep balance in a town full of quiet debts. Some say the ledger is older than Ridgewater itself. Some say every community has someone who keeps score and no one wants a job. What we do know is this: a ledger meant to track debts ended up collecting far more than money. And whatever took Clara Whitman seemed to believe her debt was paid. What do you think? Was Clara chosen? Was the ledger supernatural? Or was someone using the book to manipulate the entire town?